The grenade launchers attached to rifles are very common pieces in the armies of the world. They are really versatile weapons that can fire a wide variety of lethal or non-lethal ammunition directly or indirectly at the enemy. They appeared in the mid-60s as a more affordable and versatile alternative to grenade launchers as independent weapons, becoming practically ubiquitous and more characteristically in the United States Army, being in this army where these devices have probably seen much more action. However, have you thought about the real utility of this attachment? Obviously, it's very lethal and circumstantially very useful, but are they really necessary? And a very good question would also be, is an integrated grenade launcher much better than an independent grenade launcher? These are interesting questions that, as always on this channel, have even more interesting answers. Grenade launchers appeared in World War I. In this conflict, a lot of devices began to be used that used different means to launch grenades far away, much further than a human arm could. At most, an adult human can throw a grenade 40 meters if they have a very good arm. Well, this was a problem in this conflict as the trenches were usually much further away than that. Devices like the French Sauterelle crossbow or the English Leech trench catapult are excellent examples of the early versions of grenade launchers and were basically grenade catapults. Needless to say, they were quite ineffective systems. Later in this same conflict, rifle grenades emerged. Basically, what the engineers did was install a modified cannon to put muzzle-loading grenades, and these were triggered by the rifle projectile. The Germans in particular used a rather bulky grenade that used a rod. These generally had a decent range of 200 meters and allowed the user to use their rifle regularly after using a grenade. Obviously, soldiers couldn't always have them loaded, which was a clear limitation. These were used considerably at the end of World War I. In World War II, the Sysbecher was more popular, which was relatively more common among German troops. In addition, there were also the Kampf pistol grenade launchers and the subsequent Sturm pistol, which were clear predecessors of modern grenade launchers. Later in Vietnam, the Americans would be the ones who would innovate the most in this area. In 1961, the enigmatic M79 would be put into service, which was very good and consisted of a single-shot structure, similar to a shotgun that split in two with a hinge in the middle to reload. It could launch a grenade 400 meters with the recoil of a 12-gauge shotgun. Its characteristic sound to him earned it the nickname of Thumper. It weighed almost the same as an M16 and measured just 73 centimeters. Like many novel weapons in Vietnam, its service was bittersweet. American soldiers hated it for being too cumbersome and for its weight, which, while not too notable, became annoying on long patrols in the Vietnamese jungles. The soldiers found a very good solution to this, and what they did was to cut the stock of the guns to make them shorter and more manageable. The American High Command heard the complaints of their soldiers and later in '66 put the XM-148 into service. This gave very good results, and they subsequently took it out of service in just 1 year to replace it in '67 with the M203, a rifle-mounted grenade launcher, more particularly on the M16s. It was pretty good. Basically, the substantial improvement was the fact that soldiers could easily carry these grenade launchers on their rifles, so they could equip more soldiers with them and it didn't become too cumbersome like the M79. The soldiers who tested these weapons in 1968 in Vietnam loved them immensely. Less weight was always better, especially in such relentless terrains like the Vietnamese ones. The American Army asked for a lot more of these grenade launchers, and so many were manufactured at the end of the last century that it is probably the most common grenade launcher in the world today. Coupled grenade launchers are a standard in the world. While there are many other more avant-garde designs to call them in some way, the coupled ones are simpler and more versatile than other designs, but these are truly a good idea per se. If we look closely at the design of the M203 grenade launchers, these can present many shortcomings. To explain this, I will quote the testimony of a soldier from the Singapore Army named Leon Tai. He tells us that he usually used the Search and Rescue 21 in the Army, a moderately good bullpup rifle. Grenadiers in the Singapore Army are equipped with an M203 grenade launcher on their Search and Rescue 21 rifles, or with a Search and Rescue 21 rifle without a grenade launcher, but they must also carry the Matador anti-tank weapon. Our protagonist usually had to carry his Search and Rescue 21 with an attached grenade launcher. He recounts that he generally felt very unbalanced when firing and aiming, always feeling like it was going forward, and he had to be constantly compensating with his left arm. And that one too. He made a very curious comment. In my opinion, the worst part was holding the rifle up during urban operations exercises. While we clear buildings, we always have one guy with his rifle up to cover the advancing group. When it was my turn, it was pure torture. I always longed to get to cover so I could put my rifle down and rest my arm a bit. This was a problem I didn't have when I used the rifle without the grenade launcher and the Matador. Here we can deduce many things. For example, the Search and Rescue 21 is a bullpup rifle. So in theory, our friend from the Singapore Army should have felt less the weight of his grenade launcher. The M203 weighs around 1.3 kilograms, so it is understandable that our friend from the Singapore Army felt his weapon unbalanced. Leon Tai in his testimony spoke of the great wear that the extra weight caused on his body, and he preferred to carry the recoilless anti-tank weapon Matador, recoilless. Gun weapon, 90 of 8 kilograms rather than his M203 launcher, because basically the Matador could carry it on his back, while the MM203 had to carry it on his rifle. Having 1.3 kilograms at one end of the weapon not only unbalances it, but causes other problems such as the extra weight that a soldier must carry. Not counting the ammunition, you may think that this is not such a determining factor since 1.5 kilograms is not much. But remember what we mentioned about the M79 in Vietnam. American soldiers, in order to save 1 or 2 kilograms, cut their M79 in a way that made them useless for aiming accurately. An extra kilo on long patrols and walks is a big disadvantage. Now imagine having that extra 1.5 kilos at one end of your rifle. Every time you aim, every time you move the weapon, you will feel that extra weight. It is definitely a big disadvantage that makes your movements with the rifle slower and causes more fatigue in your arms. Perhaps that's why attached weapons like shotguns under the barrels of rifles do not succeed. So in general, attached grenade launchers are very practical and greatly increase the firepower of the infantry, but with the disadvantage of being very unergonomic. Several armies around the world resist using attached grenade launchers. Like France, Serbia, Israel, Indonesia, India, and China still use rifle grenades, several of these preferring rifle grenades over attached launchers. The French army in particular resisted the concept of attached grenade launchers since the appearance of the Fusil d'assaut de la Manufacture d'Armes de Saint-Étienne. In France, for a long time, rifle grenades were primarily used over the M203, as the latter did not fit very well with the Fusil d'assaut de la Manufacture d'Armes de Saint-Étienne. However, with the adoption of the AR-15 pattern with the HK-416, they now use North Atlantic Treaty Organization attached grenade launchers. To tell the truth, in my opinion, the solution to the ergonomics problem of the M203 is literally to completely dispense with them, to give way to grenade launchers like the M320. The M320 are small, light, and can be conveniently configured as they can be attached to AR-15 type rifles and can be used individually, allowing grenadiers to choose how to use their grenades. These weigh 1.5 kilograms, measure 35 centimeters, and fire the same 40-millimeter grenades as the M203s, having a range of up to 400 meters. This weapon definitely solves all the problems of the M203 and adapts to the tastes of each user, with the only disadvantage that you have to drop your primary weapon to use the grenade launcher. So in conclusion, the attached grenade launchers are uncomfortable and limit the functions of the soldiers. And definitely these should be completely replaced by individual grenade launchers like the M320. This is Guns Club. Thank you very much for watching this video and see you in the next one.